Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're going to dive into something pretty intriguing, something called the genius wave.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
Right, it's this 7-minute audio track, and it claims to, get this, unlock your brain's hidden potential, like just by listening to it.
Wow. Okay, color me intrigued. I'm always fascinated by, how sound can influence the brain.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye too. So could listening to this thing really boost our creativity, focus, all that good stuff?
Well, let's find out.
Exactly. That's what we're here for. So joining us for this deep dive, we have an expert in brainwave entrainment. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to dive in.
Perfect. So first things first, can we get a little brainwave entrainment 101? What exactly is this genius wave thing?
Sure thing. So the Genius Wave is a 7-minute audio track, and it uses a technique called, brainwave entrainment. Basically, it uses specific sound frequencies to kind of gently guide your brainwaves into the theta frequency range. That's between 4 and 7 hertz, if you're curious.
Okay, theta frequency range. Got it. So it's about getting our brains into this theta state. But why is that important? What's so special about these theta waves?
Right, good question. So theta waves are most prominent when we're deeply relaxed, like when we're meditating or, right before we fall asleep. It's that kind of dreamy, in-between state where your mind is calm but also very receptive.
Ah, I see. So instead of, I don't know, struggling to meditate for hours, we can just listen to this track for 7 minutes and bam, we're there.
Well, it's not quite as simple as that, but the idea is that by listening to these sound frequencies, specifically binaural beats and isochronic tones, the Genius Wave encourages your brain to synchronize with the theta rhythm.
It's like a tuning fork.
Right, exactly. Like gently nudging a guitar string into resonance. Good analogy.
Thanks. Okay, so big picture here. By syncing our brains to this theta rhythm, we can maybe tap into some of the good stuff associated with that state, like enhanced creativity, deeper relaxation. Is that the gist?
Yeah, that's the general idea. Proponents suggest that regular listening can lead to, all sorts of positive outcomes. Enhanced creativity, improved focus, better memory, even reduce stress levels.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of benefits. Okay, well, hold on. Before we get too carried away, I want to understand the HOW. What's actually happening in the brain when we're listening to these sounds? How does that lead to, well, anything, really?
So your brain is basically this complex network of electrical activity. Different regions of the brain are communicating with each other through, rhythmic pulses. And these pulses are what we measure as brain waves.
Okay, so the sound from the genius wave.
It creates a kind of gentle rhythmic input, and your brain starts to follow along.
So it's actually influencing the electrical activity in our brains.
Precisely. Specific areas like the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, and the prefrontal cortex, which is crucial for planning and decision-making, they start firing in sync with that theta frequency.
In sync. Got it. So this synchronization, this harmonious firing, it enhances communication between different parts of the brain.
That's the thought. And that leads to those potential cognitive benefits we were talking about.
So it's not just about feeling relaxed. There's actually a measurable change happening in our brain activity.
Yes, absolutely. Brainwave entrainment is a, well-documented phenomenon. Studies have shown that listening to certain sound frequencies can actually shift brainwave patterns.
So the science of brainwave entrainment itself, the basic idea, it's sound, literally.
It is. But the extent to which these shifts actually translate into, tangible, lasting cognitive benefits, well, that's still being researched. More research is definitely needed there.
So while the science, the foundation, seems pretty solid, there's still more to learn about, well, maybe the bigger claims made by programs like the Genius Wave, right? Especially the really, splashy ones.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. It's always a good idea to approach any claims of super dramatic cognitive enhancement with a healthy dose of skepticism. But, there is growing evidence that brainwave entrainment can have a positive impact on various aspects of our cognitive function.
So it sounds like the potential is definitely there, but also keeping our expectations realistic is important too.
Exactly. Brainwave entrainment is a tool, not a magic wand. Think of it as, creating a more favorable environment for your brain to work at its best.
Providing fertile ground for those creative seeds to sprout.
I like that. A perfect analogy.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we've kind of got the basics down, let's dive into those specific benefits associated with the Genius Wave, and how they might actually show up in our lives.
Sounds like a plan. Let's start with creativity.
All right, let's get creative.
So imagine you're working on a project and you're just totally stuck.
Oh, tell me about it. Like hitting a mental brick wall.
Right. So the genius wave, what it claims to do is quiet the mental chatter that kind of blocks those creative breakthroughs by inducing that theta state. It's like creating space for your subconscious mind to, come forward. And that's where those aha moments often happen.
So, okay, it's not like the genius wave is like injecting these creative ideas into our brains or something, right?
Right.
It's more about like helping us access that creativity that's already in there
Right.
somewhere.
Exactly. It's like,
But
clearing away the clutter to let those creative sparks ignite.
I like that, mental decluttering. Okay, so what about focus and concentration? I mean, we live in this world of constant distractions. How can the genius wave help us stay on track, with everything going on?
Think about when you're completely absorbed in something, like reading a really good book or working on a project that you're, passionate about.
Oh yeah, like being in that flow state
Yeah,
where everything else just fades away.
exactly. That's what the genius wave is going for.
Right.
Recreating that focused calm by encouraging your brain to enter that theta state. And when you're in that state, you're less susceptible to all those distractions, those things that are constantly pulling our attention in a million directions. So you can actually zero in on what's important.
So it's not just relaxation then, it's more like a state of focused attention,
Yeah.
creating like a mental sanctuary where you can really concentrate.
Yeah, a great way to put it. And this enhanced focus can help with memory too. When you're deeply engaged and your mind's not all over the place, you're much more likely to absorb information, to remember things.
Interesting. So the genius wave could actually help people, like students studying for exams
Hmm.
or anyone trying to learn something new.
Potentially. It's not a replacement for good study habits, of course.
Right, right.
But it can create that conducive mental environment for learning, maybe enhance the process.
Give our brains a little boost.
Right. Now, let's not forget about stress reduction, which is, a big one for so many people these days. Chronic stress really can mess with our brains. It affects our focus, our memory, our overall well-being.
No kidding. Stress is like a thief. It steals your mental clarity, your energy.
Great analogy. And the genius wave aims to, well, kind of counteract those effects of stress by inducing that phase state, that deep relaxation and sense of calm.
So it's not just about like masking the stress, right? It's actually about helping our brains to shift into a more relaxed, maybe even resilient state.
Exactly. Cultivating a more balanced mental state so
Yeah.
you can better handle, all the ups and downs of life.
Building mental resilience to weather those storms.
Now, some users of the Genius Wave, they actually report even more intriguing benefits, things like heightened intuition, stronger sense of personal control.
Okay, now we're getting into some interesting territory.
It is, and it's important to be, a little skeptical, a little cautious with these kinds of claims. The science on intuition and, things like manifestation is still pretty new.
So while it's really cool to think about the genius wave maybe amplifying those kinds of abilities, maybe we should stick to the more scientifically proven benefits for now. Like that enhanced creativity, focus, stress reduction.
Yeah, probably a good approach. But even if we just focus on those are pretty compelling.
Oh, they are. Well, I'm definitely interested in this whole idea of using sound to, enhance our brain power. But are there any downsides? Risks? Is it safe for anyone to just try this?
That's a great question, and one you should always ask whenever you're exploring anything new, especially when it comes to, the brain. Generally speaking, brainwave entrainment, when it's used responsibly with well-designed programs like the Genius Wave, it is considered safe for most people. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind.
Okay, let's talk safety. What should people be aware of?
First, if someone has a history of seizures, epilepsy, anything like that, they really need to talk to their doctor before trying brainwave entrainment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those rhythmic sounds, they could be a trigger.
Exactly. Better to be safe than sorry. It's also a good idea to start slowly. Gradually increase how long and how often you listen. Some people might get like mild headaches or dizziness when they first start.
So like any new thing, just ease into it, right? Pay attention to your body.
Exactly. And of course, use good headphones, listen at a comfortable volume, no need to blast those theta waves.
It's common sense stuff. Good advice. But what about the claims themselves? Is there any risk in, really buying into the bigger claims, the more dramatic ones? Like, could that set people up for disappointment or lead them to rely on these kinds of programs instead of, I don't know, addressing other issues, real problems?
That's a really important point. It's exciting to think about all the potential benefits, but it's crucial to have realistic expectations. These programs are tools. They're
Yeah.
not, magic wands. They can support our cognitive function, maybe even enhance it, but they're not a quick fix.
Right. They're not a substitute for like actual effort and strategy and, all that.
Exactly. And sometimes, you need professional help, or you need to put in the work to really develop your skills and abilities. These programs can be part of that, but they're not the whole picture.
So healthy skepticism, clear understanding of the benefits and the limitations, and responsible use. Those are the key takeaways here.
You got it. And one more thing to keep in mind. Brainwave entrainment, it's still a relatively new area of research. There's a lot of promising stuff, but more research is definitely needed to fully understand the long-term effects, the potential.
It sounds like we're just at the beginning of like really exploring this whole world of sound and how it can affect our brains.
It is. It's really exciting.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the science, the potential benefits and risks, what it actually looks like to use the genius wave. I bet our listeners are curious to hear more about, how this program actually works, the specifics. Ready to dive into those details.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. What's it actually like to use the genius wave?
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. The heart of it is this 7-minute audio track.
Okay, just 7 minutes.
Yep, 7 minutes. You listen to it every day, preferably with headphones. The idea is to make it a regular habit, so your brain gets used to those theta frequencies.
So no like weird rituals or special equipment, just pop in my headphones, 7 minutes a day. That seems pretty manageable, even for like busy people.
Exactly, it is. That's one of the things that makes the Genius Wave so appealing. You can fit it in anywhere, your commute, your lunch break, even right before bed.
Cool. Are there any like specific tips, things people should do to get the most out of it?
The main thing is to find a comfortable spot, a quiet spot where you can really focus. Minimize distractions, put your phone away, close your laptop. Just be present with the sounds.
So it's kind of like a mini meditation, creating that space for mental focus.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it as a 7-minute mental retreat, a chance to just step away from everything and let your brain reset.
And I'm guessing with consistent practice, the idea is that our brains become more used to this theta state, so it's easier to access those cognitive benefits.
That's the theory. Like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Regular exposure to these sounds, it could make it easier to slip into that theta state, and really tap into its potential.
Okay, cool. So earlier you mentioned some bonus materials that come with the Genius Wave. What are those? How do they fit in with everything else?
So yeah, the bonus materials are basically there to support the main audio track, give you some extra tools for, personal growth. There's a book called The Secret Behind Attracting Money and Wealth, a guided visualization exercise called Get Genius Visualization, and then an infographic called Create Your Ideal Future.
Wow, that's a lot. So it's not just about brainwave entrainment then, it's also about goal setting, visualization, all of that.
Right. The Genius Wave package tries to be more holistic. It's about, not just cognitive function, but also personal development, achieving your goals, that kind of thing.
It's interesting they include a book about finances. Is there a connection between the theta state and, like, being good with money?
Well, that's where things get a little more speculative.
Right.
So some people believe that the theta state can help you be more open to opportunities, make better decisions,
Right.
which could, in theory, lead to more financial abundance. But again, you got to take those claims with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, it takes more than just listening to an audio track to be successful,
Yeah.
right? In anything,
Yeah.
including finances.
Exactly. You got to put in the work.
For sure. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about alternatives.
Hmm?
Are there other ways to access this theta state, get those benefits, besides using the Genius Wave?
Absolutely. Brainwave entrainment, using these audio programs is just one way. There's also meditation, deep breathing exercises, certain types of yoga. Those can all promote theta brainwave activity.
So it's about finding what works for you, right?
Yeah.
What fits your lifestyle. Some people might love a guided program. Others might prefer those more traditional practices.
Exactly. The key is finding what you like and sticking with it.
Awesome advice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered a ton today. We talked about the science behind brainwave entrainment, the potential benefits, the risks, what the Genius Wave actually is, how to use it, even some alternatives. So as we wrap up here, any final thoughts for our listeners?
Sure. A few things to remember. First, brainwave entrainment. The science is really interesting, but you got to be a little skeptical, especially about some of the bigger claims. Do your research. Read reviews, talk to your doctor if you have any concerns.
Be a smart consumer.
Exactly. Second, remember, the Genius Wave, it's a tool, not a magic bullet. It can help you, but it's not going to do all the work for you. You still have to, put in the effort.
It's part of a bigger picture.
Right. And lastly, brainwave entrainment is still a pretty new field. There's promising research, but more is needed. So, stay curious, see what the future holds.
It is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Well, to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the genius wave. We've explored this really interesting world of sound and how it can impact our brains, maybe even unlock some hidden potential. If you're interested in learning more, or maybe trying a genius wave for yourself, we've got a link in the episode description. Until next time, deep divers, keep those brain waves humming.